Hello. So, just a brief mention today of a possible line of inquiry, which I must admit I have an open mind on, don't know what to make of. I'm only just starting really to explore into the question of what is masculine and feminine, what these two phenomena are about. I've been reading a book by a spiritual teacher called Drunvalo Melchizedek called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. It falls into what might be called the esoteric area. So looking at all sorts of theories about the origins of life on Earth and consciousness and so on. But what's particularly interested me is the subject of sacred geometry, which is something I don't know much about. Melchizedek relates this very strongly to how the human being, or indeed any life form, evolves from an initial cell, and looks at some detail at sacred geometry, believe it or not, that is worked out within the womb, certainly of mammals. And it's quite complicated, the maths behind it, the physics behind it, and of course the biology, how a cell divides and takes on symmetry initially from, I think there's originally just obviously one cell, but beyond about 8 cells, it starts to lose that symmetry and becomes an embryo, and the chromosomes and DNA and goodness knows what else in biology takes over. But it is fascinating. And in particular, the idea that there are energies, um, electromagnetic energies, which is something I've certainly come across in my own reading and the work of the likes of the Heart Math Institute, for example, that you may have come across, have looked into this around the human body. And the idea, seemingly in sacred geometry, is that there are essentially 5 main three-dimensional forms called the Platonic solids. But also, creating those, there are either curves or, which obviously can form into a circle, which is the feminine, or a direct line, which is the masculine. And even in biology, it's argued, we see that in human biology, we see that in the sperm and the ovum coming together. And these flow in different directions. I think it's the feminine that flows in a clockwise direction and the masculine that flows in a counterclockwise direction, according to Melchizedek and others. Now, this gets very complex with the maths and so on. So really the thing to do is to go away and have a look at this sort of study, this sort of book, which will mention all sorts of reasons why he's come to this point of view. It's not the first time I've come across this. I find it intriguing when we start thinking about energies. And if, like me, you have a spiritual background, both in certainly mystical Christian and Jewish thinking, the idea is that there was nothingness essentially, or there was God. And when there was spirit, there was this vibration, this initial, what's sometimes called the word, the logos, that brings things into being. You'll find the same concept in Egyptian philosophy as well as I'm sure in other traditions. So if that's the case, spirit, nothingness are what are needed to bring something to start in motion, as it were, from a faith point of view. When we go back and look at this sacred geometry that's happening at the point of conception for a human being, it really is quite fascinating. I will leave it there because I'm not going to be able to do any justice to something I understand very little about, and scratching my head off and about, and just having an open mind on. But it seemed another possible line of inquiry to bring into this very broad exploration of the masculine and feminine. If you want to read Melchizedek's book, I'll put the link in the description. As I say, it's not going to be for everyone. Some will see it very much in the realms of conspiracy theory and wild speculation. But if, like me, you've got an open mind, maybe there's something there that may well be of interest. My